All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. I'm Danielle Patterson, CEO of Family Office Access, and I'm excited to be here with our live audience to host this edition of our Lunch and Learn series. In today's session, we're diving into bold leadership, values-aligned capital, and evolving roles of private investors. Our guests bring both global perspective and local relevance, from shaping international standards to working directly with families as they navigate sustainable development goals, innovation, and impact. Whether you advise capital, deploy it, today's conversation is about how we can move from principle to practice. To guide us, we have two remarkable speakers. One helped create global frameworks now used by institutions worldwide. The other partners closely with families deciding where and how to act. I'm thrilled to welcome them both, and I'll begin by introducing our first speaker. Welcome, Herman Mulder. Herman is a former banking executive and is widely regarded as a pioneer in sustainability-related initiatives. He's played a founding role in creating the Equator principles, co-founded the Global Reporting Initiative, and has been a key contributor to major global standards such as the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises and the United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights. He currently chairs the Impact Economy Foundation and is known for his championing the shift from CFO to CVO, Chief Value Officer, helping organizations rethink how they define and deliver value. Welcome, Herman.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to welcome Naava Mashiah. Naava is a former diplomat turned strategic wealth advisor with deep expertise in impact investing and developing innovative financial models for social enterprise. She is the creator of the GlassBox, Unlocking Capital from Family Offices, an online course that equips social enterprises with tools to engage and raise capital effectively. Passionate about sustainable investing, Naava serves as a trusted advisor to the Global Steering Group for Impact Investing and holds leadership roles across numerous boards and initiatives at the intersection of business, culture, and diplomacy. Welcome, Naava.
Thanks for inviting me, Danielle.
My pleasure. It is an honor to have you both, and I have really been looking forward to today's conversation. I'm a curious mind, and you both have such deep expertise and bring different perspectives. So everyone joining us live is in for a treat, and I appreciate your generosity of your time and leadership today. So to open, I would love to really hear how each of you arrived at the impactful work you do. And I feel it will just set a good foundation for our broader conversation. So Herman, I'll start with you. I'd love to know how you came into this work, and perhaps you can also share, I know from our former conversations, a little bit about the two early wake-up calls you had in your career and how those have shaped your outlook.
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and all those who are participating in the conversation. I hope that we will have a lot of reactions and comments and more learnings for all of us also. I have about 52 years of professional learning, deep learning behind me. I started my professional career in 1972, just before the oil crisis, and the first oil crisis. And you can imagine that these events, these geopolitical events, shape your career at least in the first years, which exactly happened to me. I started in the oil industry and then became active in banking. So my career is about 26 years of black, I would say, oil and money. And then I had my first wake-up call in 1998. And after that, I had 26 years of more green. I don't know, the learning is still going on. I don't know where I will be in the next 10, 15 years, but probably it may have a touch of blue because I'm living in Europe. And of course, in the new geopolitical reality, I think we're all looking at how we redefine and revitalize our own identities. That's true for the US, it's true for us, it's true for China, it's everywhere. My first wake-up call was an interesting one because I was the chair of the Group Risk Committee at ABN AMRO Bank. And there was a proposal, and we were approached by one of the NGOs, Friends of the Earth, and say, well, you are participating in a mining project in West Irion. And that project is corrupt, it's dirty, it is human rights, etc., etc. And until that moment, I was, as a banker, traditional banker, mostly focused on the inbound risks of a bank. We were less concerned with the outbound impacts we make on communities and on nature and what have you. So they said, your project is not up to what your standards should be. So that was the first time we were, as a bank, approached by a project in which we are financing. I asked my colleague in Indonesia, the country manager, to go to West Irion, and he visited and he came back to me and said, Herman, they are absolutely right. It is not the type of project we should be in. That was my first wake-up call, where I was moving from focusing on the inbound risk for a bank to add to that a new dimension, having the outbound impacts. And that was my mission thereafter. The second wake-up call came in 2002. I was again chairing the committee, and we were competing with Citibank at the time for a oil project in Venezuela. And Citibank at that point in time was prepared to accept an environmental impact study by Chevron. I can mention the names because this is in the public domain. And I was not prepared to accept a Chevron environmental impact study. I wanted to have an independent one. So we lost the deal. So the house was too small in ABN AMRO Bank. Fortunately, I met with Peter Wojcik, the then chief of IFC. And he said, I have a problem, Peter. I know I'm right, but I don't get it because the market is against me. Peter said, I also have a problem. I'm too small. So we convened the 12 largest project finance banks in the world, the Americans, the French, the Dutch, the Germans, the Asians, in the beginning, and asked everyone to come with a case where they were struggling with communities, unions, NGOs, and what have you. And interesting enough, we had 12 different cases in the morning, and then we had one common cause in the afternoon. We said, this is a sector issue. We have to raise the bar. And that's how the Equator principles became. The third wake-up call was 2012, when we were in Rio for Rio +20. And it was a lot of ESG and climate concern in those days. And we felt there must be something more. It is not just do no harm. We also have to work on doing good, better, and well. And that is where the SDGs, of which I'm the co-founder in the Netherlands, the SDGs came about as a positive opportunity agenda for business, but also for working together and becoming back to the issue of community programs and blended finance for all stakeholders in the solution of societal problems to work together, business, society, and governments. So those are my 3 wake-up calls.
Amazing. What an evolution. What a journey. I love your your black to green, and now what the future holds, and what an impact and a leader you've been. Incredible to learn about the deep roots of your career history. Thank you for sharing that. Naava, and I'd love to hear from you. Can you share a bit about your path and what contributes to the unique ways in which you work with families?
Well, I think everybody has their wake-up call. It's very interesting to hear Herman's wake-up call. My wake-up call was in COVID when I was working in a family office, and a lot of ultra high net wealth families here in Geneva, global families that have their capital in Geneva. And when COVID hit, I realized that at the time I was the YPO officer for Impact. And I realized I'm doing this pro bono for YPO. Why am I not doing it during my day job? Why am I not using my influence to mobilize private capital towards impact opportunities? And that's what I did. I just, I announced on LinkedIn, not knowing exactly, Danielle, what I'm going to be doing next, but I knew this I cannot be doing anymore. I cannot just be doing conventional investing anymore. And when you do that, and Herman can vouch for this, that the more that you work with people that are on the same boat and the same goal as you, they tend to help each other. You're working with people that tend to open up their Rolodex and tend to help each other, because we realize that time is of the essence. So for COVID, for me, was a big wake-up call. And I think also for the family offices, the next generation have a lot of influence over the principles that made their wealth in a certain age. They're now telling their parents, we should be investing in regenerative farming. They're putting different agenda items on the investment committee table.
Wow, I love these wake-up calls, and how brave of you to just know you wanted to make that change, to not necessarily know exactly what that looks like, but you put that in motion. And like you said, the collaboration, like-minded values, it just perpetuates. It's like the ripple effect. So incredible. Well, I have spoken, Herman, with you before. You've mentioned the 6 capitals, and I was hoping that you could share with our audience a little bit more today, how there's, the capital of business, which relies on financial, natural, social, human, innovation, and existing facilities. Can you share a little bit more about this and really tell us how you think that links to true price, true profit, and true benefits in a way that our audience who's not as experienced will understand?
If you look at the reality of these days, then I would say we're living in the age of consequences, and the consequences which we are all facing is climate change, it's pollution, it's scarcities, it is inequalities. These are big issues which we all directly or indirectly are confronted with. And I think it's fair to say that if you are in business, and whether it's SME business in value chain of large corporations, or with product imports from other countries, or corporates who have complicated value chains, it is clear that you have a significant dependency on society and everything what it's the positives and the negatives of society. So there is a direct self-interest because of these dependencies and obstacles for business, for CEOs, for the directors of SMEs, to look around and say, what does the neighborhood in which I'm living, what does it mean? There's of course also an indirect self-interest that you don't want, for reputational or branding reasons, be associated with the harm which you may do. And in the transparent world in which we're living, you can be exposed very easily, rightly or wrongly, but it happens. So from a business point of view, and I'm still a businessman, but I'm very much a business in society, and I'm a businessman who is promoting stewardship of business into making major positive contributions to a better world and a better business. It is clear that we in business need to recognize what is going around us, not just today, but even more the impact we make on tomorrow. And I think that sometimes in the world of today, we are so focused on the short term that we forget the long term. To give you one example, if you look at reducing short-term interests prematurely, that may have an effect of too high longer-term interest. But the same is true when you're not acting on climate change. The bill will be payable 10 years from now to your generation. So the reality is that we need to address these issues with ambition and together. Now you have the regulatory approach, which is looking at how companies should look at business, and some of you may know that we have some regulatory initiatives in Europe where what we call the double materiality assessment is included. To explain that, it means that a company is obliged not only to assess and have validated by assurance companies to the risks they're incurring, but also the impacts they're making. So it goes to, I mean, as a banker, I was inbound. Your members all are very much outbound oriented, but there is a bridge now between both worlds because we all recognize we are, so to speak, in the same boat. Coming back to that metaphor, and I think we should recognize that and work together. We will come back on that later. We in True Price, I'll go further. We also say, listen, if take a pair of jeans, the price, the retail price is, what would it be, $20 to $200 in the market, market price. But if you would look in the value in the supply chain of the genes, and you would internalize and monetize all the externalities, and you're talking about, in this case, labor rights, you talk about soil degradation, pollution, water. If you gross that up in the product price, you come to a true price. And in the case of beans, that should be something like $30 more. But the question is, what do we do with that? Well, first, it gives insight on companies, where they, in their value chain, they can improve their practice. But also they can also reorganize their value chain. And thirdly, it can appeal to their clients and say, listen, I'm inviting you to pay a little bit more for that pair of jeans, but I'm doing a better business. Tony Chocolonely is a Dutch company, which is an interesting example. You now see it also at all airports in the US, which is really focused in the last 10 years, and we were, as True Price, very supportive to them to look in their value chain and come with an honest story. And I think that is what we all want. So, and the last point I would like to mention is that true pricing, true profits, true benefits, it looks over, and the SDGs, 17 goals and quite a number of targets and objectives. It looks complicated, but I think if you realize that back in 1934, when US GAAP was introduced, there was a lot of objection because no one was fit for purpose, not the reporting companies, not the supervisors, not the auditors, not the investors, all the stakeholders of US GAAP, which was financial accounting, which was introduced. We came over that. And the reality, I think, and that was complex. So I believe that the way we are moving now with much more integrated reporting along 6 capitals, and each of cost and benefits, is an essential, complex way of grasping the future we want.
Very powerful. I love the idea of being a steward of business and really evaluating the value chain. And in this day and age, with all of the tools and AI, being able to truly report and analyze the outcomes, I think it's really powerful. And people want transparency. They want honesty. So it's incredible the way you are really looking from the start to the end and what that looks like in reality.
Let me make one comment in this, as you mentioned AI.
Yeah.
When I retired from ABN AMRO Bank, I was all by myself. I mean, I was, of course, in a number of organizations, but I was all by myself. Since early 2024, I have 3 or 4 associates because I'm actively using AI. And I think that is an accelerator. And of course, you have to validate the data, but the level of conversation and the speed by which you can operate has so much improved. So I'm really, I wouldn't say addicted, but I believe that the changes we want to make, also as philanthropists or as impact investors, can be significantly improved by using AI as a reference, as a co-pilot, not more.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm encouraged by the speed. It can just help us accelerate some of these things that otherwise would take so long. Yes, thank you for that. And Naava, with the work you do with families, what do you find actually really moves them from just caring in principle about something to actually acting in practice? Feel free. I don't know that you'd be able to name names, but if you have a story, that's always welcomed. But love seeing the actual catalysts at play.
I'm happy to share some examples, and I'm proud of these examples, and also they're inspirational, so it's role models for people who may be listening. And a lot of these family offices exist because they sold a company. So they had a business. For example, Els Thermote is the principal of the Nest family office, and they had a family business for tractors, agricultural machinery in Belgium. And when they had a liquidity event, she decided that she wants to help food tech, ag tech, something close to her vertical that they made the wealth in, but they can still have familiarity and also influence. So Els is an incredible woman, a leader, and taking her privilege. I think she's third generation of the family, but it's a privilege, it's a responsibility. And she decided not just to retire in midlife, but to start this family office and put it to good use, the capital and the privilege that she has to food and ag tech. Another family, Kennyarth, it's with a C, Kennyarth. It's in London. It's also a family, the Eisenberg family, that were very successful. And the daughter, Diane, has decided to start a impact first family office, which means that they take the first lost chance. Everything is according to impact. And also if you're not making the highest return. And so that's a very interesting family office. I'm in touch with their team in London that's very highly reputable. Another one is the Impact Office in Geneva, and this is started by Risto, who's a Finnish fourth generation. And Risto, the wealth was made in sustainable bakery. You could still go to Helsinki and taste their cakes. Now, Risto doesn't know how to bake, but he knows how to manage the wealth of the family. And he also teaches other single family offices in Geneva, next generation, what is impact. It's a lot of raising awareness, a lot of time of educating. And he has a great event in Helsinki next to the Slush in November, which I highly recommend everyone to attend. And the last example, Danielle, if you permit me, is Eva Yazhari. She's a YPO member, a peer, and she left a very impressive career in Wall Street to start her fund in emerging markets. And so everybody has their pivot, everybody has their own personal story, but these are just some examples, and I consider them role models of how other families should put their wealth to use.
100%. Those are such amazing, inspiring examples. And I'm so encouraged to see more collaboration. These families can make a tremendous impact. And yes, there are still many that wish to remain secretive, but I'm seeing leaders step out because they have initiatives that they're passionate about and they want to build a brand to get others on board, because when we collaborate, we can be that much more powerful. And those examples and the way they are, forging ahead and getting others to join in the initiatives it really moves the needle.
And there's going to be more family offices in the future. There's now 20,000 family offices globally, and they're going to have more power and more influence. So it's a sector we cannot ignore, as you know.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. Well, I know that there's a lot of structure and language that we can really talk about evaluating, how families measure their impact. And Herman, you've really helped design many of these things. You've helped shape major frameworks such as the Equator principles and the OECD guidelines and the UN guiding principles. There's probably far more that you can share with us. But in developing this, where do you feel we're still falling short on implementation, and which two mechanisms do you feel can really help close the gap?
I think one of the most important aspects is listening to all your stakeholders, and whether that's on a global, national, or on a regional, or even on a local basis, is get all the stakeholders who have a positive or a negative interest in what you want to do around the table. And I think that is a starting point of sound, sustainable design, inclusive design. And I think that's where, I'm sure we're going to discuss it later, where family offices can play a crucial, may I say, oiling the wheels role. I mean, it's oiling is not maybe the right word, but you understand what I'm saying. So getting the stakeholders at the table, I think is pretty important, and make an inventory of what everyone sees in something which you want to do together. What are my interests? What may be my contribution? Map early in the stage what you want to do, and I think that's a key point, because then you learn that not everyone wants to have the same outcomes, and they may be of a different order. Some people may say, I want to have a financial return. Others want to say, I just want to have a very nice park in my area. So I'm looking for a return of this initiative in a region or even on a broader basis. I want to see what the return is. So I think, why are we working together, working on something where we share interest? It also creates, if you do that on a local basis, it creates, and that has to do with the funding, a lot of social equity. One of those capitals. I mean, the social equity means that some people are prepared to contribute to the project on an in-kind basis. Pensioners or people who are jobless, who say, I believe in this project and I'm prepared, because I believe in it, to work in it. You create positive energy. So identifying all the stakeholders, see where their energy is, and then I would say use the SDGs as a framework, because it is pretty comprehensive. It is universal. It's global, but also local. I sometimes say SDG 0 is leave no one behind, and SDG 18 is leave no SDG behind. But it covers many of the issues which in a project will come up. And once you do that, you come to a picture of scenarios, what type of project you want to create. And then you start to monetize it. You need to monetize the interest. You can that to a large, even well-being you can monetize. And of course there will be arguments about whether the figures are right, but it forces you to put a value, a monetary value to it. And I think you look at the damage you may do in the project, you look at the benefits, and you have the cost of benefits per one of the 6 capitals which you mentioned: the financial capital, the natural capital, the social capital, the innovation capital, and existing facilities. If you bring all that in a matrix, you start structuring the deal with everyone around. And that's where I think family office, but particularly when it comes to regional development, can have a major, major positive impact, because they can be the glue to bring people together. Yes. Because I'm still a little bit ambivalent. I'm looking at my risk, but I'm also looking at the impact. The true impact investor or the philanthropist is looking only and solely at what is your social intention or the environmental intention. You're looking at the impact positive impact you can make on those people you want to assist, or those organizations you want to create. So I think I see a great future. It's true in the US, it's true in Europe, where impact investors and philanthropists can really oil the wheels of community-based programs and bring the pension funds, the business, the municipalities, bring them at the table, and maybe even moderating this type of these conversations, because it is a truly an enormous opportunity for family offices to step up and say, I have my social hat, I have my impact investor hat, I have my philanthropy hat. We need to sit together and work it out together in the age of consequences, scarcities, inequalities, pollution, and climate change.
That is powerful. You're truly, being an architect of impact, and it almost requires you start at the end and reverse engineer, and that end is the goals, and it varies from person to person. So understanding that value you hope to bring, and I agree. I think the family office can be the glue, because the way that they tend to think is for the next generation, not always that immediate gain or what the immediate business cycle is telling them. And Naava, I've referred to you as an architect of impact, and I know that your world often intersects both philanthropy and impact. Do you see you're needing to really work with the families to, like Herman said, identify what the end goal is, to find the right opportunities and collaborators?
I think that from my experience and my viewpoint, the family office's impact has a different definition for everyone. It could be if they lost somebody to a certain disease, they're going to invest in cancer. If they had somebody losing to an earthquake, so it's very personal. But what I have seen is that they like to co-invest.
Yeah.
And if there's one family that has an expertise in a certain topic, they do the due diligence. Not all the family offices have the resources to do the due diligence on every opportunity. So one leads, invests, and then the others follow. And there's a few platforms for them to get together, even if they don't know each other. Especially after COVID, it was very difficult for them physically to get together. So there's Tonic, which you probably heard about, and there's Camden Wealth. And in America, there's Gratitude Railroad, because both Herman and I are in Europe, but in Gratitude Railroad is specifically for the USA. And so they get together, they follow, they look, and they see, and they co-invest together. They feel comfortable herding their capital together in a certain impact opportunity. The lone wolves, I've seen lone wolves as well. I've seen another leader is Andre Hoffman, who you may know, vice president of Roche, and he's written a book called The Nature of Business. Mm-hmm. And Andre was raised in the south of France. You know, he's had experience in the summers in nature, and he's the chief sustainability officer, also the chairman of the sustainability committee of Roche, and he looks in advance 100 years. He has this lens of 100 years forward. And one of his famous saying is that I don't want to make trouble and make damage to nature and then fix it afterwards. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put that design already in the forefront. And so that's what he brings into his business strategy, is how do I avoid making the damage so I don't have to fix it when I retire? And that's very rare. It's very rare. I mean, Paul Pullman is another figure that's a leader in that respect. And it's not just not doing enough bad, it's doing good, as Herman said before. It's not enough just to make less damage. You're still stealing. Yeah. So you have to do, when you're in a position of responsibility, you have to do good.
I agree. You know, it's not necessarily about avoiding harm, but rather how do we design it that, you know, we start from good and it continues on that trajectory. And Herman, with all the work you do in informing structures and architecting these things, do you have any ideas what really needs to be involved to design with good from the start?
I think there are, and I'm really focusing on an area where I feel the family offices can step up, because I see in the public life, I see a lot of paralysis. I see consequently also in the business society, I would say paralysis, but confusion. And that's true for the US, it's true for Europe. And I see also in the financial sector, a regulatory paralysis, which whether it's pension funds or banks. So there's the need to introduce new agents to develop the societal projects which we need, which are not being picked up by either the government or by the business or by the financial sector. And I think that, and I think family offices, and that's what the point I was trying to make in my earlier comment. I think family offices have with their sensitivity in regions close to where the issues are. Mm-hmm. They should by, for example, able to pick up societal needs and say, listen, there is this issue in our community which we need to address. I'm taking, as a family office, with my impact or intention focus, I take the initiative, and it may not be, there is a younger generation there often who would like to put up their sleeves and say, I'm going to work on it. And they should take the initiative to say, I'm going to invite for the design stage of such a community program. We are going to take the initiative and we're going to identify those parties who are going to sit at the table. So that's the point I was trying to make. Family offices in a world of confusion, regulatory overkill, or paralysis should have a unique contribution to get things going, to be an agent of change. And we have a platform here in the Netherlands where we do exactly that, where the family offices use that convening power to say, listen, the longer we wait with addressing it, the higher the price will be, the cost will be of not doing it. So that was the point I was hoping to make.
Oh,
family offices step up and
yeah.
help create the design. And of course, it is not philanthropy. It is you really want to make impact and beyond just philanthropy. You want to have also the returns which you as a family office would like to define. But I think we have a criteria for that, and then maybe that's something which you may consider when we look at regional projects in particular. We say every public euro or dollar should, in the financing structure, mobilize at least four private sector euros. So, which means you have €5.
Mm-hmm.
Those €5 must create a societal value of 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to monetize what a public euro, and government funds are scarce or not at all available. You need to have an approach where you really say, well, this is the input, but this is the desired outcome or impact, and you need to monetize that. And that factor of 25, we tested that, is plausible. And by doing that, you force yourself to improve your due diligence, to improve your plan, to mobilize equity which otherwise would not have been available. So I think that is my appeal to family offices here, but also definitely amongst your members in the US and elsewhere. Say, look at what you can do in your society by mobilizing other parties who, for whatever reason, are absent right now. And we need that agent of change.
Yes. And in that way, we can transform these global issues into manageable solutions
Local,
and
absolutely.
actions. And then they are the leaders. It's a proven model, and you can adapt and take this into your own communities. But you can't just sit around planning. You've got to execute. And so that is very inspiring, neat to see examples of that already in action. And hopefully this will inspire even more. Naava, I'd be curious to hear from you. I know how much work that you're able to do cross cultures, having done lots of work in Israel, the Gulf, Europe, Latin America, and you often are able to help people with those, cultural differences and navigate those very strategically. And do you find, I'd love your insights just on making impact cross borders versus, Herman's approach to very community focused?
Well, first, I want to just add on to Herman's point is I'm very optimistic about the wealth transfer, this 32 trillion wealth transfer that's coming up in the next decade, because it's the next generation that will, I really believe in the next generation and the youth. They may have a smaller pot of capital, but they're going to put it to the right use. So I'm very hopeful that they will make the right choices. And because they have to stay here, we won't be here. And I think that one of the problems and the challenges of the principles of the people that made the wealth in the family offices is that they're not going to stay around, and you really see the desperation of the next generation and because they're going to have to live in this world afterwards. And so I just wanted to add that. With respect to cross communication and economic cooperation and dealing between, I dealt with Israel and MENA, Middle East, North Africa. I think that the most important thing is humility. You have to have humility in order to build trust, in order to have a win-win-win situation. When you have a joint venture between countries cross-border, you need to have a trust that's not that everyone is winning. And there's also a very famous quote where commerce crosses, soldiers do not cross. When there's trade, soldiers do not go there. And I wish, we would be back in the 90s when I was in the foreign ministry and serving with Shimon Peres at the time, when we were signing agreements with our neighbors instead of what's happening now. And I think if more people listen to that, if there's a common interest in a common trade and a common joint venture, then there's less violence. But you need trust and you need humility.
Very, very important. So, to both of you, a question to both. Do you think that there's a trade-off between focusing capital globally versus locally, or can the two possibly reinforce each other?
Naava?
Okay, so ladies first. I believe people have a geographical bias that they like to invest where they are. They understand the world where they live. I have many investors saying to me when I send something about emerging markets, they say, no, I only do Europe and North America because that's what they feel comfortable. And the way to overcome that is what Patrick Odier is doing. Patrick Odier is the chairman of Lombard Odier, and he's taking delegations to Africa. He's taking delegations of asset managers to Africa to show them the potential of the people and the demographic. And that's how you change. You have to feet on the ground. That's how you change the perception of the asset managers and the decision makers.
So, having a trusted guide, essentially. And that kind of refers back to families co-investing with other families, where their comfort level, where their expertise, their ability to do the proper diligence, when those families align in value, it helps open those opportunities beyond just what they feel comfortable. But the trust is the foundation, and often having the boots on the ground experiences.
I'm going to give a commercial for Patrick Odier because he's having an event in Geneva, building bridges, and it's where finance meets sustainability, sustainability meets finance, and that's taking place at the end of September 28th, October 2nd. So if anybody's in Europe, this is a great place to meet the principals of their family offices, to meet the next generation, to meet the Andre Hoffmans of the world, and it's a great event. It's the 6th edition coming up.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, all of the resources you've shared today. It's like we need a cheat sheet for all of them. Well, I'd love to talk about the sustainable development goals. There are these 17, and I'd love to hear from each of you on a personal level. Which of them are you most passionate about?
18. I'm a golf player, so anyhow, maybe 19 as well. But 18, leave no SDG behind.
Yes.
That is my favorite. Because I think that's because it is not in due diligence or in discussions with stakeholders. You need to look at all of them in their connection. And what we have in SDG the Netherlands, which is the community of SDG practitioners in civil society, business, and academia, and a sparring partner of the government. We of course have a number of organizations involved, but we also have ambassadors for each individual SDG. So we have a group of 17 ambassadors in the Netherlands for SDG 1 to 17. And interesting enough, they all recognize that there's so many cross connections with all the other ones that you cannot do it by yourself. So 18 is for me the most important one. Consider all of this. Some may be material for you now. They may become material later, but I would say 18 is my favorite SDG.
I love that.
So mine is a bit different. My answer is a bit different because when I first started looking, when I announced I'm doing sustainable investing, I started looking which direction do I want to go? And then I realized that in Israel, there's a new protein ecosystem, new protein. How do we feed the world in 2050, 10 billion people? And how do we expedite the efficiency of that? And so for me, it's agriculture, food tech, water, anything in that space resonates with me. And this is where I like to put my effort to help. And then you, as Herman said, when you have water, when, one of a great project, Sunil Alvani, one of my friends, is Project Magi, and he's providing sustainable access to clean water in Africa. And then you realize it's also gender, because it's the females that are they are the ones that don't have to go to the river to bring the water. So when you're helping water, you're helping gender, you're helping inequality. So it is all, in the end, a web. But for me, how it started was food, new proteins, and water.
And Nava, I know you do have to leave here shortly. So one last question for you, and then Herman, it's all you and me through for the remainder. But you did mention those SDGs that are very passionate to you. You brought up an example of a family office who really had put those into practice after exiting their agricultural business. And so for other families that really want to participate meaningfully, what are the first steps you would recommend? I mean, who would you partner with locally? What would you ask it for in diligence? And what would you watch for in red flags?
I would look for the events that are taking place around me. There's a lot of events taking place. There's a lot of online events taking place. You don't necessarily need to fly across the Atlantic or across the Pacific. There's a lot of online events. GIN, the Global Impact Investing Network. There's a lot of, that's how I educated myself about what's going on, and it's constantly changing. The language is getting standardized more and more. The measurement is getting standardized. GIN event is taking place in Berlin, October 7th through 9th. But if you're not available to go there, just go online and educate yourself and find your partners that you trust and be patient, because we do need patient capital to fix this. And do not be greedy. Be patient and pretend that you want to live in the world if you're not old enough, but pretend, what is the world that I'm leaving for my grandchildren? If I'm the grandchild, this is how I would look at it and put my money to work.
Beautiful. Well, that was such a wonderful way for you to leave. I know you have a very important meeting, so I wish you luck and thank you from the bottom of my heart for
Thank you, Danielle.
The inspiration and wisdom with us today.
And thank you, Herman. And I appreciate having this time with you. See you in person. Good luck with the rest.
Lovely. Thank you. So yeah, Herman, the same question could certainly apply if you have anything to add on to what Naava just shared with us in terms of, the questions we should ask. Who would you partner with locally? What would you ask for in diligence? And what would you watch for in red flags?
Let me first comment that it's a pity that Naava had to leave, but I'd comment on what she just said. Yes, we need patient capital, but maybe it has to do with my age, but we don't need patient minds. We should be very ambitious, all of us, because by waiting longer, the price will only be higher. So that's that's my first comment. I'm in a hurry, so to speak, and I hope you will be as well. I would say let me go back before I answer your question on the SDGs.
Yes.
I think it's good to recognize that we are failing our ambitions as we set them in Rio plus 20, and it was adopted by the United Nations and by all of us in 2015. I think we have to recognize, after the initial excitement, there is right now some, I wouldn't say fatigue, but say, well, 2030 is the year that we have completed the first stage of the SDGs. By definition, they are not complete, but you see some loss of attention for the SDG, and that worries me, because I can see, but even more, I would say, in the world of today, this opportunity framework is timeless. It is universal. It can be applied in developing countries. It can be applied in cities or in neighborhoods. It can be applied everywhere. And I think we have a mission here as the believers to say, listen, 2030 is artificial. We have to revise it, because it doesn't mean that we have finished the job. No, the journey goes on.
It's never done.
Exactly. And I think we should change the conversation and say, listen, we realize that we cannot do all of the above at the same time with everyone. We need to continue the mission, and I would invite any government to say, listen, and as a matter of fact, we're working on that here in the Netherlands. What does it take with having lost some momentum? What does it take to realize what we have achieved, should be achieved in 2030, 5 years later? Come with a comprehensive investment plan, for instance. Alongside the SDGs, what is needed to realize that? How many investments? How much public capital, how much private capital, how much philanthropic, how can we get a plan together? That's my first recommendation to all of us. Don't submit yourself to the fatigue of 2030. The journey goes on. As a matter of fact, we have to revitalize it. It is in the interest of all. It's not left or right. It's not woke or anti-woke. It is a universal agenda, which whatever your view of society is, we need to, because sometimes I say nothing is impossible, particularly when it's inevitable. Well, all the symptoms which are addressed in the SDGs sooner or later will haunt us if we don't address them. So now come back to the practicality SDGs, because we're missing the initial targets. And I think here the regions, the cities, the neighborhoods, what we have been discussing are crucial, because that's where you can mobilize the social equity. And also, when you address the issues close to where the problem is, the cooperation will be much more focused on the solution. We're not talking about politics or principles. No, we just want to get it done.
Yes.
I think that is what we need. And that's why I believe, whether it's the SDGs from New York or the SDGs in the neighborhood in, as I would call here, in Rivierenland, that's where you have to use the instrument you have to come to solutions. And one of the problems with the paralysis in society right now here in the Netherlands is permitting, because we have endless procedures, appeals against permits.
Right.
And that's an obstacle. Now, if you engage, as I said before, all the stakeholders associated who will be affected by a windmill project or by a river dam or by whatever project you have in a region, you can, if you include them, your case to prevent all those appeals, deferring and even abolishing this project will be killed. This early engagement, early due diligence, early engagement, not only on the issues, but with all the stakeholders, I think is crucial. And that comes back to my hope for the family office to see it's not just funding, and it's not just seeing the impacts making. Nay, take a leadership role, be the steward you want to be for the communities, for the community outcome or community impact, and that's fun. It's structured finance. As a banker, I would say I would love to do it.
Yes.
I think that's where you can, the younger generation of the family office can say, I'd love to do that. And of course you can charge a fee, which as a family office, which you only get if it is successful. So you may also reinforce the wallet you have to do more things. No cure, no pay. If you do it right, I think you can make a very interesting impact-driven, outcome-driven regional business case.
Incredible. And then be that needed leader, that person who's actually put it into practice, shown the returns, shown the impact, shown the effect. It's on that local level, you're right. I mean, it comes down to being able to mobilize and getting aligned, having that trust as well. And so I think starting with your community, forming that alignment and really executing. And I'm so inspired by your enthusiasm. You're a mover and a shaker. Look at all the things that you're involved in. It's a testament to your passion. And it's sad that maybe all of these logistics and red tape and people's own fear paralyzes them. And so a great encouraging starting point is just to start local. Yeah. Well, I know there are a few questions I will read. Jonathan K. from the audience asks, how to bridge the gap between the family office looking for investment, the opportunities at the early stage companies to be invested in, and the specific, often difficult due diligence that has to be done for such opportunities. This is a good question. It's complex.
I think due diligence is I would say AI is a main driver of significantly improving your due diligence. And I would really encourage everyone use AI to prompt reference cases or reference investment opportunities and see what are the learnings of those. I mean, I think I really believe in the power of AI to deepen the due diligence, to raise the bar, and of course ask the better questions to yourself and to those who are your partners. So I would say, as I said, I have now 3 flight engineers or co-pilots in my cockpit, and my productivity, and I also would say, when it comes to project analyses, go into the depth, looking for reference cases, enables me to, for those who are promoting an initiative, to ask better questions. And maybe I'm asking the questions which they haven't thought about. So I would say due diligence is greatly benefiting from using AI in a very sensible way. And of course, there are many chatbots. You need to validate your questions or the answers with each other, with some of the chatbots. But because it is the machine. But I do take them seriously to raise the quality of my questions in my due diligence. And that's how I look at, and it surprised me. I was working on a project the other day on insoles, and then I noticed that.
No, it looks like Herman cut out for a moment.
By asking questions which the company who wants me to invest in hadn't raised the question itself. So, and if that is, are we frozen?
You came back. You froze there for a minute, but we could hear you throughout. You're good, Herman. There was a little freeze, but we can still hear you. Well, I'm glad our technical difficulties only happened here right at the end. But I really wanted to ask Herman what AI tools he personally uses. You know, there's so many out there, and I was curious to know if there was an off-the-shelf that he gravitates towards, or he has built some of his own. But we will have to get those answers and follow up in our chat where the event will be archived on LinkedIn. Well, I'm so thankful that the technical problems did not follow us throughout, and we have just about come up to our time. So I would love to thank all of you for being here. I know time is our most precious resource and asset, and so thank you for sharing it with us. This has just been a wonderful conversation. I'm very grateful to both Naava and Herman for being here. And for those exploring aligned family offices, today's Lunch and Learn is brought to you by Family Office Access. And I invite you to our website, familyofficeaccess.com, where you can start a free trial. And for our members who are tuning in live, you are welcome to use the promotion code LIVE20 for a 20% savings through the end of the month. And until next time, wishing everyone meaningful connections that last, and thank you for being here today with us.